long ago, when the goddess Nuwa was repairing the sky, she melted down a great quantity of rock into 36,501 large building blocks. One single block was left unused. It lay at the foot of Green Sickness Peak and possessed magic powers. It could grow or shrink to any size it wanted. Later, a Buddhist monk and a Taoist priest brought this stone into the world of mortals, where, in time, it grew into one of the undisputed classics of Chinese literature, The Story of the Stone, also known as A Dream of Red Mansions. That laid-aside stone stands for both the protagonist of the novel, Jia Baoyu, and the author himself, Cao Xueqin.
I still recall the bond of old by stone and flower made, and while my vacant eyes behold crystalline snows of beauty pure and cold, the romance between Jia Baoyu and Lin Daiyu lies at the heart of A Dream of Red Mansions. Lin Daiyu, a creation that highlights Cao Xueqin's genius and sensibility in its entirety, is not only the heroine of A Dream of Red Mansions, but also the most prominent female protagonist in classic Chinese literature and art. As portrayed in the novel, Daiyu is the scion of a cultured family in Suzhou City, who later moves to Yangzhou with her father, the salt commissioner. Due to her mother's early passing and her father's poor health, Grandma Jia, who's also Baoyu's grandmother, sends a boat to bring Daiyu to the Jia mansion in the capital. Although having often been told by her mother that Grandmother Jia's home is rather exceptional, Daiyu is still deeply surprised when she discovers that several low-ranking servants she's in contact with on the journey are quite out of the ordinary in terms of food, clothes, and almost everything else about them. So she quickly realizes that once she has arrived at the Jia mansion, she'll have to watch every step she takes and weigh every word carefully. A foot wrong, a word out of place, and the scorn of the household will be truly withering. Upon arrival, Daiyu meets Grandmother Jia and her uncles and aunts. When Lady Xing asks her to stay for dinner, Daiyu, then less than 10 years old and extremely timid, replies with a gentility that invites sympathy. She says that it's very kind of her aunt to offer, and though she ought really not to refuse, nevertheless, she still has to pay her respects to her uncle Zheng, and fears that it would be disrespectful if she were to arrive late. She hopes that she might accept on another occasion and begs her aunt to excuse her.
林黛玉刚到这个贾府的时候啊，没有那么小性，她非常在意，到了一个新的地方，而且是比她原来那个世界要更大气的一个地方，要注意符合人家这儿的规矩，入乡随俗，一定说话做事都要小心。
Fortunately, Daiyu meets Baoyu, her cousin, on the day she arrives in the Jia mansion. The two were amazed by each other as described in the novel. Daiyu looked at him with astonishment. How strange! It was as though she had seen him somewhere before. He was so extraordinarily familiar. Baoyu laughs, saying that, "I have seen this cousin before. I have the impression of meeting her again after a long separation."
我觉得他们两个是灵与灵的结合。林黛玉讲她美，讲她这样，讲她那样，但我们看下来，林黛玉好像没有肉身的。它是一股灵气，或者是事情。他两个本来仙缘上，他两个是 心灵之交。
When meeting this cousin who's as beautiful as an angel, Baoyu has, like never before, a sense of inferiority. When he hears that Daiyu doesn't have the jade, he takes his off and hurls it on the floor, cursing, "Rare object! What's so lucky about a stone that can't even tell which people are better than others?" Grandma Jia and others do their best to calm him. Later that day, Daiyu cries guiltily about provoking Baoyu to abuse his jade. Aroma comforts her by saying, "You mustn't take on so, miss. You'll see him do much stranger things than that before he's finished. Try not to be so sensitive."
Cao Xueqin's family also had powerful relations. He was born in Nanjing, and by the age of 13, he was the young master of household of the Jiangning Silk Manufacturing Bureau. Between the mid-17th century and early 18th century, 4 members of the Cao family, of 3 different generations, had run the bureau, which, besides making fancy fabrics and clothing for the royal court, was spying on government officials in the south. For half a century, the Caos tied themselves to prestigious households in both the capital and the south through marriage, some of which were even arranged by the emperor himself. That's how Cao Xueqin ended up with a great number of cousins, male and female. As a matter of fact, the Cao family, as one of the families of the Manchu 8 banners, had no explicit rules against intimacy between young boys and girls. This led to a profound family bond and friendship between Cao Xueqin and some of his cousins. Founding a poetry club and flying kites were likely things he had done with his childhood playmates. But was he ever intimately attracted to one of them? Quite possibly.
Lin Daiyu as a fictional character has won the hearts of countless readers over centuries, not just because of her beauty and talent, but also because of her lofty virtues. She's innocent and kind-hearted. When Caltrop Xuepan's young concubine wants to learn poetry, she prefers to turn to Daiyu even though she lives far away. And Daiyu proves to be patient and dutiful as a teacher, helping Caltrop become a member of the poetry club in the Prospect Garden in just a few months.
他所住的那个潇湘馆就是一个绿竹依依的一个所在他当时选择这个住所的时候，他也说他就是爱那几根竹子。那我们也知道，竹子在传统文化里面也是君子品格的一种象征。而且在抽花签的时候呢，好巧不巧的，他抽的是芙蓉花。那芙蓉其实呢，跟芙蓉相关的是和，是年，也是君子人格的一个象征。
我并不完全认为曹雪芹就把他自己的个性写到贾宝玉。福楼拜他写包法利夫人的时候呢，当时有很多的记者都要采访他，要问他说包法利夫人是谁？是你的前女友还是前前女友？还是你总是有一个模特儿把它写下来？的时候，他说了一句很激动的话：“包法利夫人就是我。”但是我从中体会很深，也许每一个男作家笔下的那个第一女主角都是她。 也许曹雪芹把自己投射在什么人身上最多，不是贾宝玉，而是林黛玉，那种怀才不遇的、寄人篱下的、生命中充满了坎坷辛酸的、孤儿的、意识的这种东西，他更多的放在林黛玉的身上。
As Chinese writer Lu Xun once commented, a poor man enduring hunger wouldn't grow orchids for fun, as a rich man does. By the same logic, Big Zhao wouldn't love Lin Daiyu. The love between Baoyu and Daiyu was based on the rebellious spirit they shared in a noble family living through feudal times. On one occasion, Shi Xiangyun tells Baoyu, "You ought to be mixing with these officials and administrators as much as you can. You'll certainly never get anywhere if you spend all your time with us girls." Finding such talk highly displeasing, Baoyu retorts, "I think perhaps you'd better go and sit in someone else's room. I wouldn't want a decent, respectable young lady like you to get contaminated." Aroma, who's with them, jumps in immediately by mentioning that when Baochai said similar things, Baoyu just stormed off with no consideration of her feelings, and that it was lucky that Baochai was as poised as she was, for had it been Daiyu, Baoyu would have to apologise all the time. Unexpectedly, Baoyu says, "Have you ever heard Miss Lin talking that sort of stupid rubbish? I'd long since have fallen out with her if she did." Both Aroma and Xiangyun shake their heads with a smile and say, "So that's stupid rubbish, is it?"
她在《红楼梦》里面占有一个第一女主角的地位，她跟宝玉之间的那种互为知己的关系，是中国人情里面最美的一种关系，就不用说话，她就知道你要说什么。这个贾宝玉呢，到这个外面呢去寄道金钏，好，那回来以后，贾母就说了，到哪里去了？出去都不说的话，以后叫你老子打你。好，他就说啊，北静王的爱妾没了，我去到哪？好，那然后呢就坐下来呢看王熙凤的生日宴会，哈，继续的看戏吃酒。所有的人都不明就里，不知道他去哪里。只有林黛玉就说了：“这个王石鹏也不通得很啊，天下水共一源啊。如果要祭拜的话呢，举一瓢水来悼念悼念也就罢了，为什么偏偏要跑到江边去呢？”就是在说他，这个就是他没有说，贾宝玉没有说他去哪里，所有的人都不知道他去哪里。那林黛玉是怎么知道？她非常的认识，非常清楚贾宝玉是什么样的人，而且他用一种点化或者点透他的方式，就说你笨啊，干嘛跑那么远还被人家骂。
Not only are the two of them attracted by each other's looks and personality, they also share a deep bond based on common interests. It's only natural for them to fall in love with each other. However, they live in a time when marriages are arranged by parents, especially in powerful households like theirs. Freedom to choose your spouse is considered outrageous. A young woman of noble birth would be accused of being unchaste for simply having a love interest.
后来的小幸很简单，就是由于他跟贾宝玉之间的特殊的感情，他开始对贾宝玉感觉到了那种少女的相恋的心情。当然，他也谈不到别的，也不能在那个社会也不允许你一个女孩跟你贾宝玉说，是吧？二哥，我爱你，这当然是不可能的。他也不能说，但是他又觉得贾宝玉跟他的处境不一样。贾宝玉周围那么一群美少女都包围着，而他呢就找不到一个自己的真正的亲人。恰恰是这种特殊的心情和特殊的情感，使他变成了小幸的这种人。
In his youth, Cao Xueqin's family kept a professional opera troupe at home year-round. It was the golden age of Kanchu opera. Classics like The Peony Pavilion, which is a story of love, though one not approved by the moralists of the day, were loved by everyone from royalty to commoners. The then Emperor Kangxi himself was a fervent fan of Kunshu. during Yuan Chun's visit in the novel, she requests a performance of the Peony Pavilion too. The opera was favoured by young Cao Xueqin as well. Its melodies and romantic lyrics mesmerized this teenage genius. Because for you, my flower-like fair, the swift years like the waters flow. Here, multiflorid splendor blooms forlorn, midst broken fountains, mouldering walls. Those words prompted Cao Xueqin to sigh, just as Lin Daiyu did in the novel. There is good poetry, even in plays. What a pity most people think of them only as entertainment. A lot of the real beauty in them must go unappreciated. While undergoing a strict conventional education, Cao Xueqin was immersed in classics of theatre like the Peony Pavilion and literary classics such as Western Chamber. In his spare time, Cao Xueqin would steer away from the adults in his family. He preferred to spend his time with artists in opera troupes. He found that these stagers, who were despised by so-called gentlemen, were in fact lovely people who were smart, interesting and kind. From these young actors he learned the basic skills of stage performance, not to mention a wealth of anecdotes and plenty of gossip. But that never stopped him observing the real world. For him, the attraction of these beautiful young creatures was irresistible.
Another key feature in A Dream of Red Mansions is Shui Baochai, a member of the Shui household, one of the 4 powerful families. The Xues are royal merchants who are so wealthy that to count their money would take all day. Aunt Shui, Baochai's mother, is the sister of Lady Wang, Baoyu's mother. She and her family come to stay with the Jias later in the novel. In one episode during a drinking game, Baochai pulls a card with a peony on it, along with the caption Empress of the Garden, and a verse from a poem, Yourself lack passion, yet can others move. In fact, though the novel's main theme is love, Shui Baochai is somehow emblematic of a lack passion.
宝钗难写，宝钗基本上她是一个世俗的正面人物，写的不好变成女孔子，一来一大篇的道理，一大篇道理啊，什么都懂，她也有诗才，但是她的诗是等于是儒家这个淑女的教育。 要念诗词这样的，他不像黛玉是性灵的，他适可而止，他也很会写诗，但适可而止，他也懂画，适可而止，最重要的是，他是儒家系统中法社会那个最理想的这个社会里面最理想的一个媳妇儿。
Thanks to her wit and family background, Baochai wins everyone's heart in the Prospect Garden, from Grandma Jia to the maids. Baochai's true colours come out soon after the incident with Golden, Lady Wang's headmaid whom Baoyu tries to seduce. Lady Wang slaps and insults her before expelling her. Grossly humiliated, Golden drowns herself in a well. Lady Wang's deeply disturbed by the suicide when Baochai, sensing what's going on, hurries to her and says, "In my opinion, Golden would never have drowned herself in anger. It's much more likely that she was playing about beside the well and slipped in accidentally. There's no earthly reason why she should have felt angry enough with you to drown herself. If she did, all I can say is that she was a stupid person and not worth feeling sorry for."
薛宝钗居然能够安慰王夫人，说出那一套话来。丫鬟本身就是不应该有气性，就不应该有人的尊严，就应该服服帖帖，是吧？主子打了骂了，就应该逆来顺受这样的。说鲁迅曾经讲过，有些道学先生在血迹面前能够保持一种惊人的冷静。那么薛宝钗的修养呢，她修得了这种冷静。应该说，这种地方薛宝钗的冷静呢，达到了那个冷酷的程度。
Cao Xueqin married twice. His first wife died young. Before his second marriage, he really had difficulty coping on his own. Compared to the extravagant life he experienced in the mansion of the Zhengning Imperial Silk Manufacturing Bureau as a child, life in the hamlet in Beijing's western suburbs was quite a come-down. Nevertheless, writing A Dream of Red Mansions gave Cao Xueqin a sense of purpose, improving his mood. In autumn 1759, invited by Yin Jishan, the then Governor-General of a region south of the lower reaches of the Yangtze River called Liangjiang, Cao Xueqin went to Nanjing to serve in the governor's mansion as an advisor. Being an idealist with lofty ideas, Cao Xueqin resented the bow and scrape in a powerful household, as well as his obsequious colleagues. So, after just a year, he gave up this comfortable job and returned to the western hills on the outskirts of Beijing to continue his writing. The Nanjing trip, however, wasn't at all pointless. Some scholars speculated that it was in Nanjing he met his second wife and got married again in middle age. Others argued that his new wife was a remote cousin, the model for the character Qi Xiangyun.
怎么他描写他的婚呢？叫并蒂花成蕊，夫妻之间是并蒂花，是平等的，同心有一针。他书箱子，我们书籍的文物，书箱子，这是书箱子的话，并蒂花成蕊，同心有一针。我们一看到这个时候，哎呦，说难道那个时候清朝人也是讲同心，也讲友谊？这个不是现代化吗？一翻《红楼梦》的杏子阴，杏子阴假凤气虚晃，就有友谊这个字儿。书箱子和《红楼梦》也可以对得起来。
The years after this second marriage might have been the happiest days in Cao Xueqin's life. Though still impoverished, he now had a confidant to spend time with in that small courtyard in the western hills. The couple often reminisced of the joyful days of their childhood in the scenic south, where the meandering Qinhuai River caught the reflections of the dazzling city lights. Whenever nostalgia hit them, they sighed together.
Baoyu and Daiyu, since their reunion in the mortal world, have grown from close friends to lovers. However, in the rigid environment of Jia Mansion, even a simple confession has to go through countless invisible barriers. Finally, Baoyu confesses his feelings to Daiyu when Xiang Yun advises him to take the official exams and become an administrator. Baoyu rebukes him, saying that Daiyu has never talked that sort of stupid rubbish. Daiyu happens to arrive and hears those words through the window. Mingled emotions of happiness, alarm, sorrow and regret assailed her. She feels happy because Baoyu takes her as a true friend, just as she has done for him. All the same, she's alarmed because such unreserved praise from Baoyu could easily arouse suspicion and be misunderstood. Baoyu finishes his hasty dressing, comes out of the house and catches up with Daiyu, who's slowly walking on ahead of him, seemingly wiping her eyes. When Daiyu wipes the perspiration from his brow for some moments, he stands there motionless, staring at her. Then he says, "Don't worry." Daiyu doesn't understand why she should worry. Baoyu replies, "My dear, don't think you can fool me. If you don't understand what I've just said, then not only have feelings towards you been all along mistaken, but all that Yon have ever felt for me has been wasted too. It's because you worry so much that you've made yourself ill. If only you could take things a bit easier, your illness wouldn't go on getting more and more serious all the time." Hearing that, Daiyu's thunderstruck by how Baoyu had read her mind and perceived her so clearly. And now there are 1,000 things she wants to tell him, yet though she's dying to speak, she's unable to utter a single syllable. Just a simple "don't worry," but it could well be the most beautiful love confession in the whole of Chinese literature.
《红楼梦》里边之所以有暖色，可能还在于它描写了一种爱情理想，比如宝玉和黛玉那种完全不计名利、完全是思想共鸣的这样一种爱情，实际上它是属于一种人类共同的理想。而过去的爱情呢，往往更多的是世俗的考虑，是这个什么家庭门第啊，然后以及自己婚姻得到了以后这种得失的判断为依据的。而《红楼梦》里边完全就是一种两情相悦的这样一种选择。实际上这样一种选择呢，在今天也不具有完全实现的条件，但他写出来了。
Later that day, Baoyu receives a severe beating from his father for seducing a maid and befriending an actor. At night, Daiyu, with swollen eyes and tears on her face, comes to the Green Delight quietly. But because there are so many other visitors, they don't get a chance to talk before Daiyu leaves in a hurry.
宝玉叫晴雯拿2块手帕去给林黛玉，这手帕是用过的，宝玉自己用过的旧手帕， 旧手帕那个给叫晴雯拿去。晴雯说：“你拿旧手，他用过什么？等一下林姑娘又不高兴了啊。”这宝玉说他懂的。后来他拿去给黛玉，黛玉说是拿什么？还拿手帕。黛玉说我用不着，他以为是新的。那晴雯说是用过的旧的。哦，这下他懂了。这是暗传这个定情表记了，这是。哇，他拿的那个是五内俱粉，又是惊又是喜又是这个，这个拿的那个手帕，他就点灯了起来，就是在这个手帕上面写了3首诗，那是情诗，那是这个女孩子平常不能讲的、不能吐的都写出来了。
Yet silk preserves but ill the naiad's tears. Each salty trace of them fast disappears. Only the speckled bamboo stems that grow outside the window still her tear marks show. Daiyu cites in this poem one of the oldest love stories in China. Huang and Niu Ying are two sisters, both of whom are married to ancient China's Emperor Shun, who dies during a trip to the south. The sisters go looking for him and hear the news of his fate by the Xiangjiang River, where they weep in a bamboo grove. Their tears fall on the bamboo stalks, giving this particular variety of bamboo the markings it has today, until both of them die of broken hearts. It's with such bold verses that Daiyu reciprocates Baoyu's love. Even though Baoyu never gets to see these poems, he's confident that Daiyu will respond with passion, just as he says to Skybright, she'll understand.
红楼梦啊，它一大特点，就是它在写了一些悲情的、压抑的，乃至于龌龊的现实的同时，他也一直写着人生的理想。这一点呢，尤其和《金瓶梅》对比，就非常明显。因为《金瓶梅》啊，在它的现实主义的刻画，和这个内容的丰富、人物的多样方面，也是一部很重要的小说。但是呢，《金瓶梅》里头有现实，有批判，有暴露，却很少有理想。《红楼梦》里头有理想，这个理想首先是对青春的赞美，对女性的赞美，尤其是对年轻人的爱情的理想，一种所谓精神上的知音的寻觅，都让人看到了，这个青春的这种靓丽，这种快活，这种向往。
Love is a theme that transcends culture. Yet every great love story bears the mark of its particular time. It's the same whether the story is by Shakespeare or Cao Xueqin.
Around late 1930s in Oxford University, an ordinary-looking Chinese student met and fell in love with a beautiful English girl. They were Yang Xianyi and Gladys Taylor. Later, Gladys came to China with her husband, and the couple dedicated their whole lives to translating Chinese literary classics. By the end of the 1970s, a complete English translation of Cao Xueqin's masterpiece, named by the couple A Dream of Red Mansions, was published in China. The Youngs weren't the only translators of this Chinese classic. John Minford, along with David Hawkes, his supervisor and father-in-law, completed another translation of A Dream of Red Mansions, known as The Story of the Stone, and published it in the West. Minford's connection with the book began in Hong Kong in 1966 when he was a student of the Chinese language at Oxford University. The mother of the family he was staying with was somewhat like Grandma Jia. She was the one who told the young Minford that if he wanted to understand her family, or indeed China as a whole, he'd have to read A Dream of Red Mansions.
And when I went back to Oxford, where I was a student, I asked my lecturers to teach me Hong Lou Meng, but they all said no. They said, this is a very dangerous book. It will cast a spell on your life. So we won't teach it to you. But they said, if you can wait, Professor Hawkes, he's coming back from his leave next year, and he'll probably teach it to you. So when Professor Hawkes came back, I still remember this book, and I said to Professor Hawkes, will you teach me Hong Lou Meng? And he said, his eyes lit up like that because he loved Hong Lou Meng. And he said, of course. So I was one student, just the only student in the class, and together we read the first 10 chapters of Hong Lou Meng, and it made a very deep impression on me. And then some 4 years later, we began to translate the whole book together.
While studying and translating the book, Minford fell in love with his supervisor's daughter. Teacher and student suddenly became family to each other, a wonderful new chapter in the tale of the book's journey across the world. Minford ascribed his love story and career to literary karma. But while the translator has been rewarded with a happy ending, the love story in the book doesn't end quite so well.
The decline of the four powerful houses comes sooner than expected. As fate would have it, the two pillars of the families, Yuan Chun, the imperial concubine, and Wang Zitong, Baoyu's uncle who's to be promoted to the Grand Scholar of the Cabinet, die one after the other within just a month. The Jia household is instantly thrown into an abyss of despair. When Baoyu's jade goes missing, plunging him into delirium, an arranged marriage is scheduled.
宝钗是儒家社会的非常理想的一个，所以这贾母怎么会不选她？你说，她老太太也很务实、很理性的，黛玉病多嘛，薛宝钗健康嘛，要生孩子嘛，可以，家从贾母的眼光看，她要选宝钗，也是合理。 这边的造成害死了黛玉的悲剧了，而且常常很多人不原谅宝钗，说是不可能，宝钗怎么可能嫁给贾宝玉？因为贾宝玉那时候玉也丢了，哎，他明明知道宝玉喜欢林黛玉，爱的是林黛玉，别忘了就是宝钗也爱他。 但他不能讲，不讲他这个宝玉被打的时候，他去给他药啊，这个也哭了，掉了一点眼泪，那不得了了。
很多人都会说那个薛宝钗很虚伪，很怎么样？其实呢，薛宝钗的这些作为吧，你与其说薛宝钗虚伪，你不如说那个封建道德本身就要求人这样子。那么薛宝钗的大家所诟病她的东西呢，很难说都是这个。 品质上的缺陷是吧？有的就是这个它的规范本身就是虚伪的，所以我说那个停机德，这个停机德呢是造就了薛宝钗，也是薛宝钗悲剧的根源。
When Daiyu hears from Simple that Baoyu's going to marry Baochai, she's pale as snow, tottering along. Her eyes staring straight in front of her, meandering in circles. Nightingale hurries over and asks her, Why are you turning back again, miss? Where are you heading for? Daiyu, somewhat in a daze, replies that she wants to ask Baoyu something. She now seems to have recovered her strength. She does not wait for Nightingale but raises the portiere herself without help and walks into Baoyu's room. Baoyu was sitting up in bed, and when Daiyu came in, he made no move to get up or welcome her, but remained where he was, staring at her and giving a series of silly laughs. Daiyu sat down uninvited, and she too began to smile and stare back at Baoyu. There were no words of any kind. Suddenly, Daiyu said, "Baoyu, why are you sick?" Baoyu laughed. "I'm sick because of Miss Lin." Aroma and Nightingale grew pale with fright. They tried to change the subject, but their efforts only met with silence and more senseless smiles. "Come on, miss," urged Nightingale. "It's time to go home and rest." "Of course," exclaimed Daiyu. "It's time." She turned to go, still smiling and refusing any assistance from the maids. She strode out at twice her normal speed.
林黛玉听说贾宝玉结婚要和薛宝钗结婚了，她的那种痛苦，她的那种失神，她那种带有就是现在精神病学上叫癔症的那种表现，都到了非常这个惊人的这个感动人的地步。后40回最感人的地方，就是贾宝玉的婚姻和这个林黛玉之死，连那个题目都起得非常好，就是说这个苦绛珠，魂归离恨天，病神英，泪洒相思地。
I think the whole social way has some of the best scenes in the whole novel, you know. Wonderful scenes. The death of Lin Daiyu, for example. Her nightmare, for example. The scene where she and Baoyu talk riddles, you know, Zen Buddhist riddles, you know.
She wants to see him and to ask him about it. But what she does is that she just sits next to him and doesn't ask the most important question she has at that time. If he was actually loving her or not, or if it is true that he wanted to marry somebody else. Where the conditions for this expression of feelings are set by Chinese customs of that time.
Meanwhile, Aroma has told Lady Wang the truth about Baoyu and Daiyu. Having heard it, Grandma Jia says, "Ours is a decent family. We do not tolerate unseemly goings-on, and that applies to foolish romantic attachments. If her illness is of a respectable nature, I do not mind how much we have to spend to get her better. But if she is suffering from some form of lovesickness, no amount of medicine will cure it, and she can expect no further sympathy from me either." Back in her dwelling, Daiyu, despite her weakened condition, burns all her poems, including those written on the handkerchiefs, before telling Nightingale, "I have no family of my own here. My body is pure. Promise me you'll ask them to bury me at home." The only thing this brilliant young woman finds in the Jia mansion, with its sleekness and luxuriance, is total despair. That's what prompts her to say, "I have no family of my own here." She wants to go back to Suzhou in the south, where she could enjoy scenes of bustling night fairs and busy boats loaded with fancy satin. On Baoyu's wedding night, Daiyu dies after exhausting herself of all her tears. Pure substances, the pure earth to enrich. Her brief existence had finally reached its end.
这个黛玉之死拉高了好高，把黛玉整个人物提得很高，不再是弱柳扶风的这么一个这个多愁善感女孩子，还是一个殉情的烈女，把自己稿子烧掉，把那2块手帕跟那个宝玉定情的2块手帕把它烧掉，等于把自己的在尘世上的这一段情斩断，写得极好。
《红楼梦》的悲剧不在这个贵族之家的没落，而在于在哪儿呢？而在于作者曹雪芹他有一种人生理想，一种审美理想，就是刚才讲的，他的审美理想就是有情之天下，而这种审美理想在当时的社会条件下必然要被毁灭。林黛玉有一句诗叫“冷月葬花魂”，这句诗可以作为这个悲剧的这个《红楼梦》悲剧的一个概括。
Jia Baoyu's conversion to Buddhism after passing the official exams is not just about how he, a building block used by the goddess to repair the sky, chooses to exit the moral world. It's also a way of rebuking an age that tended to nip beautiful things such as true love in the bud. Baochai, Baoyu's new wife, and the perfect girl in terms of the orthodox ideology of the day, has to spend the rest of her life in solitude. Aroma, who's essentially just another Baochai, involuntarily ends up getting married to Jiang Yuhan, the actor, after Baoyu leaves. These fine women, both highly praised in the family, still can't escape the destiny predicted for them in the 12 beauties of Jinling. Like birds who, having fed, to the woods repair, they leave the landscape desolate and bare.